My name is Margaret Turner. I'm 65 years old, born and raised in the small town of Dayton, Ohio. I thought I had seen enough heartbreak in my lifetime, losing my husband to cancer, raising my daughter alone, and fighting to keep a roof over our heads when everything seemed impossible. But nothing, and I mean nothing, could have prepared me for the day my own daughter and her husband turned on me in the most violent and heartless way. It happened in their living room on a bright Sunday afternoon. My son-in-law's punch knocked me to the floor. My head hit the edge of the coffee table, and I tasted blood on my lips. As I tried to push myself up, dizzy and shocked, my daughter, my only child, the baby I had carried for 9 months and protected for decades, grabbed me by the hair. She yanked me so hard that tears streamed down my face from the pain, and with her eyes blazing like fire, she screamed at me, "Get out. It's our 4 million now." I couldn't even process what she meant. My own daughter, my own flesh and blood. Betrayal doesn't even begin to describe what I felt in that moment. The neighbors stood outside on the sidewalk. They saw me through the window, saw me sprawled on the floor, saw the madness unfolding. But they didn't move. They didn't help. They just stood there like frozen statues, whispering among themselves, until one neighbor finally made a call. Minutes later, police cars lined the street. Red and blue lights danced across the perfect white fences of the neighborhood. My daughter's perfect life was about to crack open, the facade destroyed in front of everyone. And when the handcuffs came out, the silence on that street was deafening. Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Let me know where you are watching from. You don't know, you might be lucky to get a shout out on our next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you like stories like this. Now, let me take you back. Because to understand how things got to that shocking moment, you have to know where it all began. I wasn't born rich. In fact, I grew up dirt poor. My father worked in a factory until his lungs gave out, and my mother cleaned houses for pennies. I learned early on how to make a meal out of scraps and how to smile through struggles. When I married my husband, John, I thought life was finally turning around. He was kind, hardworking, and he loved me deeply. We didn't have much, but we had each other. When our daughter Emily was born, she became the center of my world. I poured everything I had into her, my time, my energy, my savings. John. And I wanted her to have a better life than we did. But tragedy came knocking far too early. John got sick when Emily was only 16. Cancer spread through his body so fast that the doctors said there was little they could do. He passed away within the year, leaving me with a broken heart and a pile of hospital bills. Emily and I clung to each other during that time. At least I thought we did. I worked 2 jobs just to keep her in school, making sure she had clothes, books, and food even if it meant I went without. I remember nights when I ate crackers and water for dinner so she could have a proper meal. People in Dayton knew me as the woman who always smiled, always lent a hand. I helped neighbors with groceries, volunteered at church events, and cooked for anyone who didn't have family during the holidays. Kindness was all I had to give, and I gave it freely. So, when life finally threw me a bit of luck, I thought it was a blessing. My late husband's cousin, who lived in Florida, passed away suddenly. I barely knew him, but apparently he had no children and no spouse. And in his will, he left everything to me. His house, his land, his savings. Altogether, it was worth close to $4 million. For the first time in my 65 years, I felt like I could breathe. I thought this money was going to change everything. I thought it would give Emily a future, a cushion she never had to worry about. But instead, it changed her. At first, she was sweet, helpful, almost too attentive. She'd call me every morning, ask how I was doing, bring me little gifts. I thought, finally, my girl and I are closer than ever. But slowly, the mask started to slip. Her questions became sharper. When are you going to put the money in my name, Mom? Why do you need such a big house all by yourself? Wouldn't it be better if you moved in with us and let us manage things for you? I brushed it off at first, thinking she was just worried. But the tone of her voice told me otherwise. It wasn't concern, it was greed. Her husband, David, wasn't any better. He worked as a contractor, always boasting about his big deals, but somehow always broke. He had a slick smile, the kind that never reached his eyes, and he started visiting me more often, offering to help with the estate paperwork, suggesting ways I could invest the money that, of course, included him in the middle of it. I refused, gently at first, then firmly. That's when the tension began to rise. Emily would show up unannounced, sometimes furious, sometimes in tears, always talking about how hard life was for her and David. I'd listen. I'd hug her. I'd slip her a check for groceries. But no matter how much I gave, it was never enough. The breaking point came when I refused to sign over the deed of the Florida house to her. I told her it was my decision, and that while I intended to leave it to her one day, I wasn't ready to give it up yet. Her face hardened in a way I had never seen before. And that's what led to the Sunday afternoon where my own daughter pulled my hair while her husband raised his fist. The betrayal cut deeper than any bruise. And yet, that wasn't even the end of the nightmare. Because just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the sound of sirens filled the air, and what happened next shocked the entire neighborhood. The sirens were deafening, their wails slicing through the calm of the Dayton neighborhood. I sat on the floor of my daughter's living room, blood dripping from the corner of my mouth, my hair tangled in Emily's fingers. My heart hammered against my chest as red and blue lights flashed through the curtains. David froze. His fists clenched, but his eyes darted toward the window. Emily's grip on my hair loosened just slightly, enough for me to jerk my head away. She stood there breathing hard, her chest rising and falling like she had just run a marathon. For a brief second, we all stood in silence, as if time had stopped and none of us knew what to do next. Then came the pounding on the front door. Dayton police. Open up. Emily's eyes widened. What do we do? She whispered frantically to David. What do you mean, what do we do? He hissed back. Get her up? Make her clean herself up now. I struggled to my feet, my knees wobbling beneath me. Blood smeared the back of my hand when I wiped my mouth. I wanted to run to the door, to cry out for help, but David blocked my path, his large frame towering over me. You say a word, he growled, his face inches from mine, and I'll make sure you regret it. Another knock rattled the door, harder this time. Police, we need you to open this door immediately. Emily panicked, rushing to the kitchen sink. She grabbed a rag and shoved it into my hand. Wipe your face, Mom, she ordered, her voice trembling but cold. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I stared at her, my own daughter, my baby, the child I once sang lullabies to. I couldn't recognize her anymore. Her face was twisted, not with fear, but with anger that I dared not bend to her will. David opened the door just enough to peek out, his voice smooth, almost casual. Evening, officers. Is there a problem? One of the officers, a tall man with a firm expression, leaned in. We received a call about a disturbance. Neighbors reported shouting and possibly violence. His eyes flickered past David, landing squarely on me where I stood in the middle of the living room with the rag pressed to my lip. The officer's jaw tightened. Ma'am, are you all right? My heart raced. This was my chance. My salvation. I could tell them the truth, and everything would be over. But Emily's eyes bored into me, silently pleading, or was it threatening? I couldn't tell anymore. My throat closed up and no words came out. David laughed lightly. Oh, you know how it is. Family disagreements get a little loud sometimes. But we're fine. Isn't that right, Margaret? He turned his head toward me, his smile fake, but his eyes sharp as blades. I swallowed hard. My lips trembled as I forced the words out. Yes, we're fine. The officer's brow furrowed. He didn't look convinced. Are you sure, ma'am? Emily jumped in quickly, her voice high and sweet, dripping with false innocence. Oh, officers. I'm so sorry if we worried the neighbors. We were just discussing some family matters. My mom gets emotional sometimes. Emotional? That word stabbed me like a knife. After everything I had done for her, after all the sacrifices, she reduced me to nothing more than an emotional old woman. The officers exchanged glances, then one of them nodded. All right, but we'll be circling the area tonight. If anything happens, call us right away. David closed the door with a polite smile, and the moment it latched shut, his expression twisted into rage. He spun around and pointed a finger in my face. You listened to me, old woman, he snarled. That was your one chance. If you ever try to embarrass us again, you won't make it out alive. Emily crossed her arms, silent, her eyes darting between me and her husband. For a second, I thought I saw something, regret, maybe, flash across her face, but it disappeared as quickly as it came. I wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but my body betrayed me. The years weighed heavy on my bones, the bruises stung, and fear gripped me like chains. So I said nothing. That night, after the police cars finally left, David demanded that I stay at their house until I signed certain papers. He and Emily kept me under watch like I was some kind of prisoner. My phone was taken, the landline unplugged. I lay awake in the guest bedroom, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the officer's question. Are you sure, ma'am? No, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. The next morning, Emily came into my room carrying a tray with coffee and toast. She set it on the nightstand, her face softer now, almost like the daughter I once knew. Mom, she whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. I didn't want it to go this way, but you're making things so hard. Don't you see? The money should be ours. Me and David, we're younger, we have plans. You don't need it the way we do. I stared at her, my chest tightening. Emily, I worked my whole life with nothing. Do you really think this money is just about me? I wanted it for you, for your future, but not like this. Not with violence, not with lies. Her eyes welled up, but she shook her head stubbornly. You don't understand. You never will. Then she left the room, slamming the door behind her. The days that followed were a blur. They watched me constantly, pushing papers under my nose, pressuring me to sign over properties, accounts, and assets. I resisted, clinging to the little strength I had left. But each day, the walls closed in tighter. Until one evening, everything changed. David had been drinking heavily, pacing around the living room with a beer bottle in hand. His face was red, his voice booming as he shouted at Emily about bills, about missed opportunities, about me. She won't give us the money, Emily. She's stubborn, just like an old mule. You think the cops will save her? No one's coming for her. No one cares about some washed-up widow. Emily tried to calm him, but he shoved her aside. Then his eyes locked on me, sitting quietly on the sofa, knitting needles trembling in my hands. He staggered over, towering above me. You think you're better than us? You think you can keep everything while we scrape by? I'll show you what happens when people get in my way. And then he reached down, grabbed the knitting needles out of my hands, and snapped them in two. The sharp ends glinted under the light as he held one up threateningly, his grin wicked. Sign the papers, Margaret, he growled, or this goes somewhere you won't like. Emily gasped, David, stop. But it was too late. He raised the jagged needle in the air. And at that exact moment, there was another knock at the door. Only this time, it wasn't the police. It was someone else. Someone whose voice made David freeze mid-motion. Margaret? Are you in there? It's Pastor Williams. Open the door. The room went dead silent. My eyes widened. My heart raced. Because if there was one person who knew me well enough to sense when something was wrong, it was him. And just as David lowered the sharp needle toward me, the pastor's voice grew louder. Margaret, I know you're in there, and I'm not leaving until I see you. The sound of Pastor Williams's voice cut through the room like a blade. David's hand froze in the air, the broken knitting needle still clutched between his fingers. Emily's eyes darted toward the door, panic spreading across her face. Margaret, the pastor called again, his tone firmer now. I stopped by your house earlier, and you weren't there. The neighbors told me they heard something over here. Are you all right? Every muscle in my body screamed for me to shout, to tell him the truth. But David was still looming over me, his jaw tight, his fist clenched. If I so much as whispered, I knew he'd strike. Emily stepped forward quickly, forcing a smile as she raised her voice toward the door. Pastor Williams. Hi, it's Emily. Mom's fine. She's just resting. Resting? Pastor Williams replied skeptically. At this hour? Emily, may I see her? Emily glanced at David, her face pale. He shook his head violently. Don't you dare let him in, he hissed. Pastor, Emily called again, her voice trembling but sweet, maybe another time. She's not feeling well. There was a pause outside the door. I held my breath. And then his words came, firm, unyielding. Emily, I've known your mother for 30 years. If you don't open this door, I'm calling the police again. David cursed under his breath, pacing like a trapped animal. His face was red with fury. He grabbed Emily's arm. Do something, he barked. But before she could answer, the front doorknob rattled. Pastor Williams wasn't leaving. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. I don't know where the courage came from. Maybe from years of being silenced, maybe from the fire that still burned deep in me, maybe from knowing that if I didn't act now, I'd never get another chance. I shot to my feet, my voice cracking but loud. Pastor, I'm here. Help me. Everything happened at once. Pastor Williams shoved the door open, the chain lock snapping under the force. He stepped inside, his eyes locking on me, my swollen lip, the bruises on my arms, the fear etched across my face. Good Lord, Margaret. David roared in rage and lunged forward, but Pastor Williams wasn't a small man. He was in his early 70s, but tall and broad-shouldered from years of working on farms. He stepped in front of me, blocking David's path. You lay a hand on her, and so help me. I'll make sure you regret it, the pastor thundered. Emily screamed, Stop it, both of you. Her voice cracked, but her eyes darted nervously between David and the pastor. For the first time, I saw it clearly. She was torn. Greed had consumed her, yes, but in that moment, I saw the scared little girl I once knew. David, though, there was no hesitation. His rage was blinding. He charged at Pastor Williams, shoving him backward against the wall. The broken knitting needle clattered to the floor. I screamed, clutching the armrest of the sofa, unsure what to do. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Emily did the unthinkable. Instead of pulling David off, instead of protecting me, she turned and ran to the back of the house. A moment later, I heard drawers slamming. David grunted, pinning Pastor Williams by the shoulders. You should have stayed out of this, old man. But Pastor Williams was stronger than he looked. With one sharp twist, he shoved David backward, sending him stumbling into the coffee table. The glass top cracked under his weight with a sharp snap. I rushed forward, grabbing Pastor Williams's arm. We have to get out of here. But before we could reach the door, Emily returned. And in her hands was something that made my blood run cold. She was holding my late husband's revolver. It was the old gun John had kept locked away for emergencies, the one I thought was still hidden in my bedroom drawer at my house. Somehow, Emily had found it. And now she stood in the doorway, her hands trembling, her eyes wide and desperate. Enough, she screamed, pointing the weapon at us. Nobody moves. Pastor Williams froze. I clutched his arm, my knees buckling. Emily, what are you doing? I whispered, my voice breaking. Tears streamed down her face, but her grip on the gun didn't waver. You're ruining everything, Mom. This was supposed to be simple. You were supposed to give us what's ours. But now look what you've done. Emily, please, I begged, stepping toward her. This isn't you. Put the gun down, sweetheart. We can fix this. But David, still hunched over the broken coffee table, grinned wickedly. Do it, Emily. Do it now. She'll never hand it over otherwise. My heart shattered into pieces. My own daughter. The baby I once held against my chest, the child I once sang to sleep, now stood before me with a gun in her hands, torn between love and greed. Pastor Williams slowly raised his hands, his voice calm but firm. Emily, listen to me. I've known you since you were a little girl. This isn't the path you want to take. If you pull that trigger, there's no going back. Emily's lips trembled. Her eyes flicked between me, David, and the pastor. For a split second, I thought she might lower the weapon. But then, her finger twitched on the trigger, and the sound of the hammer cocking filled the room. The sound of the gun cocking was like thunder in my ears. My breath caught in my throat, my entire body frozen. Emily's hands shook as she aimed the revolver, her eyes darting wildly between me, Pastor Williams, and David. Emily, sweetheart, you don't want to do this, I whispered, my voice trembling. Please, you'll ruin your life. You'll ruin everything. David's grin widened, his teeth glinting under the living room light. Don't listen to her, Emily. She's manipulating you. She always has. Do it. Take what's rightfully ours. Pastor Williams slowly stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. His voice was calm but firm, like he was preaching a sermon. Emily, listen to me. That gun, it's not power. It's destruction. I've seen too many lives ruined because someone thought pulling a trigger would solve their problems. Don't let that be your story. Emily's lip quivered. For a second, I saw it again. That flicker of doubt, that little girl buried deep inside her. The child who used to sit on my lap during thunderstorms, trembling until I whispered that everything would be all right. But David's voice cut through the moment like a knife. She's weak, Emily. She'll never respect you. You want freedom. You want the life we deserve. Then prove it. The gun shook harder in Emily's hands. Her breathing came in shallow gasps, tears streaming down her cheeks. I took a careful step forward, my palms open. Emily, baby, look at me. Please, put the gun down. I don't care about the money. I care about you. I care about my daughter. Her gaze locked on mine. Her finger hovered on the trigger. I could see the storm raging inside her. Fear, anger, love, confusion, greed, all crashing together. And then she screamed. But instead of pulling the trigger, she hurled the gun across the room. It clattered against the hardwood floor, spinning until it landed near the sofa. Relief surged through me so strong that my knees nearly gave out. Thank God, Pastor Williams muttered, lowering his hands. But David wasn't done. With a roar, he lunged for the revolver, his hand stretching toward it. No, I cried, diving forward. My fingers brushed the cold metal at the exact same time as his. We wrestled for it on the floor, the gun sliding under the sofa. Let go, you old hag, David snarled, shoving me so hard my back slammed against the table leg. Pain shot through my ribs. Pastor Williams rushed forward, grabbing David by the shoulders. That's enough, he bellowed. The two men struggled, their bodies crashing into the furniture, knocking over lamps and sending picture frames smashing to the floor. Emily stood frozen, her hands over her mouth, sobbing. And then, the sound that made my blood run cold. Bang! The gun went off. The blast echoed through the house, rattling the walls. For a moment, time stood still. My ears rang. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. I blinked through the haze, my heart pounding. My eyes darted from David to Pastor Williams to Emily, who had been shot. My stomach twisted into knots as I saw Pastor Williams stagger backward, his hand clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped through his fingers. No, I screamed, rushing to his side. Pastor. David's face twisted into something monstrous, equal parts panic and rage. He looked at the gun, then at Pastor Williams, then at me. His chest heaved like a cornered animal. This is your fault, he roared, pointing at me. You should have just given us the money. Emily screamed, David, stop. She rushed toward him, but he shoved her aside so hard she slammed against the wall. I knelt beside Pastor Williams, pressing my trembling hands against his wound. Stay with me, Pastor. Please stay with me. His eyes met mine, pained but steady. Don't let him win, Margaret. Don't, his words faded into a groan. I wanted to scream for help, but my voice cracked under the weight of panic. And that's when David did something that made my heart nearly stop. He grabbed the gun, yanked Emily by the wrist, and dragged her toward the door. We're leaving, he snarled. We'll finish this another way. Emily struggled weakly, tears pouring down her face. David, no. Please. But he tightened his grip, his eyes wild. Shut up. You're coming with me. I tried to rise, to stop them, but my body gave out under the strain. I could only watch as my daughter was dragged out the front door, the revolver still in David's hand. The door slammed behind them with a thunderous bang, and I was left kneeling in the blood of the only man who had dared to help me. My hand shook as I pressed against Pastor Williams's shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding. His breaths came ragged, each one slower than the last. Blood seeped between my fingers, warm and sticky. My vision blurred with tears. Stay with me, Pastor. Please stay with me, I whispered, my voice breaking. His eyes flickered open, filled with pain but also calm. Margaret, don't let him break you, he rasped, his hand weakly patting mine before slipping back down. I bit my lip hard, refusing to let myself fall apart. I couldn't lose him. Not like this. I staggered to my feet and ran to the phone, but the cord dangled uselessly from the wall. David had ripped it out days earlier. My cell phone was long gone too. Panic threatened to consume me. Then I remembered. The neighbors. They had watched everything through their windows before. They had stood there, whispering, frozen in place. But maybe, just maybe, one of them was still watching now. I stumbled to the window, banging on the glass with my fist. Help! I screamed, my voice hoarse. Please, someone help. For a moment, nothing. My chest tightened with despair. But then I saw it. A curtain fluttered, and Mrs. Henderson from across the street peered out, her eyes widening as she spotted the blood on my hands, and Pastor Williams slumped on the floor. Within seconds, her phone was in her hand. She mouthed something, I'm calling. Relief flooded through me, so suddenly my knees almost buckled. I rushed back to Pastor Williams, kneeling beside him. Hold on. Please. Help is coming. But inside, Tara gnawed at me. David had Emily. He had the gun. And with his rage boiling over, who knew what he might do next? Across town, Emily sat in the passenger seat of David's truck, her hands trembling in her lap. The revolver lay on the dashboard, glinting under the glow of the streetlights. David, please, she whispered, her voice barely audible. This has gone too far. David slammed his hand against the steering wheel, making her flinch. Too far? Too far. She's the one who pushed it too far. That old woman has been dangling that money over our heads, acting like she's better than us. Well, I'm done waiting, Emily. Done. Tears streamed down Emily's cheeks. Her heart pounded in her chest, not just from fear of David, but from guilt. She had let it get this far. She had stood by while her own mother bled, while David threatened and hurt the people she loved. This isn't what I wanted, she whispered. I just wanted a better life. David sneered. And you'll get it. But not if we roll over now. We finish this. We take what's ours, one way or another. Emily stared out the window, her reflection a ghost staring back at her. She didn't recognize herself anymore. Back at the house, the wail of sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flashed once again across the quiet Dayton street. 2 patrol cars screeched to a halt outside, and within seconds, officers were storming through the front door. Step aside, ma'am, one of them barked. I stumbled back as 2 paramedics rushed to Pastor Williams, immediately working to stop the bleeding. One of the officers crouched beside me. Ma'am, are you injured? I shook my head quickly, my voice trembling. It's not me, it's him. And I'm my daughter. He took her. He has a gun. The officer's jaw tightened. Who has her? My son-in-law, I stammered. David. He dragged her out at gunpoint. The officer exchanged a grave look with his partner. We'll put out an alert. I grabbed his arm desperately. Please, you have to find her before it's too late. He nodded. We'll do everything we can. But I could see it in his eyes, the uncertainty, the doubt. They didn't know what David was capable of. I did. Hours blurred together in a haze of flashing lights, questions, and medical equipment. Pastor Williams was loaded onto a stretcher, his face pale but his chest still rising and falling. I clutched his hand until the paramedics pulled him away. Will he be okay? I begged. One of them gave me a quick nod. He's strong. We'll do our best. Strong. Yes, he was. Strong enough to step into a nightmare for me. Strong enough to face down a man half his age. I prayed that strength would carry him through. When the officers finally turned their questions to me, I told them everything about the inheritance, about David's threats, about Emily's change. My voice cracked more than once, but I forced myself to keep going. By the time the sun rose the next morning, an official manhunt for David was underway. But while the police searched, I was left alone in the house that still smelled of gunpowder and blood. The silence pressed down on me like a weight. My hand shook as I picked up the shattered knitting needles, the broken picture frames, the overturned furniture. It felt like cleaning after a storm that had nearly destroyed me. But deep down, I knew the storm wasn't over. Not even close. Meanwhile, David's truck sat parked in a dingy motel lot on the outskirts of town. Inside, Emily sat on the bed, her hands tied loosely with an old extension cord. David, please, she begged again, her voice hoarse from crying. Let me go. Let's just leave town. We don't need the money. We can start over somewhere else. David laughed bitterly, pacing the room like a caged wolf. Start over? With what? Pennies? No. That money is mine. And if your mother thinks she can hide behind the cops, she's dead wrong. Emily's stomach turned. She knew he meant it. He wouldn't stop until he had destroyed everything in his path. She looked at the revolver sitting on the dresser, just a few feet away. Her pulse quickened. If she could just reach it, maybe she could end this nightmare. But David's eyes followed her every move. You're thinking about it, aren't you? He sneered. Trying to play hero? Don't even try it, Emily. You're with me in this, whether you like it or not. Emily's heart pounded. She wanted to scream, to fight, to run. But she was trapped. For now. Back in Dayton, I sat in the kitchen with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, sipping tea I couldn't taste. My mind raced with memories of Emily, her first steps, her first day of school, her wedding day. How had it come to this? The knock at the door startled me. My heart leapt as I hurried to answer, half hoping it was Emily. Safe, changed, remorseful. But it wasn't her. It was two detectives. Mrs. Turner, one of them said gravely, "We found the truck." My breath caught. And Emily? Is she? The detective shook his head. They weren't there when we arrived. But he hesitated, pulling a plastic evidence bag from his coat pocket. Inside was a scrap of torn paper, scrawled with messy handwriting. I took it with trembling fingers, my eyes scanning the words. It was Emily's handwriting. Mom, I'm sorry. The letters blurred as tears filled my eyes. But just as I pressed the note to my chest, the detective spoke again, his voice grim. There's more. We traced a call David made from the motel. He wasn't just ranting about money. He mentioned a plan. Something about making sure you never see a dime either. A chill swept through me. What does that mean? I whispered. The detective's eyes darkened. It means he's not just after the money anymore. He's after you. I sat at the kitchen table, the torn note still clutched in my trembling hands. Mom, I'm sorry. Emily's messy handwriting blurred through the tears clouding my eyes. It wasn't much, but it was something. Somewhere deep inside, a part of my daughter was still alive, the little girl who used to sneak into my bed during thunderstorms, clutching her blanket and whispering, "Don't let go, Mommy." But David's shadow hung over every word. The detective stood quietly, waiting for me to speak. The older one, Detective Harris, finally broke the silence. Mrs. Turner, we believe your son-in-law is planning something beyond theft. From the call we traced, he made direct threats against you. He's angry, desperate, and he has a firearm. That makes him dangerous. Dangerous. The word felt too small, too polite. David wasn't just dangerous. He was a storm, tearing through everything in his path. And now the storm was heading for me. I want to help, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Tell me what I can do. Harris frowned. What you can do is stay somewhere safe. We're arranging protective detail. Until we find him, you're not to be alone. I wanted to argue, but I knew he was right. My body still ached from the bruises, my ribs sore from David's shove. And yet, as the detectives left me in the care of an officer stationed outside the house, I couldn't shake the gnawing fear. If David wanted me dead, no amount of police cars would stop him. Across town, in the dingy motel room, Emily sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. The extension cord binding her wrist was loose enough now that she could slip out if she tried, but she didn't move. Not yet. David paced like a predator, muttering under his breath. She thinks the cops can protect her. She thinks she can hide. But I'll show her. I'll take everything she has and burn the rest. Emily swallowed hard. David, please. Just stop. We can leave town. We can start over somewhere far away. No one has to get hurt. He spun on her, his eyes wild. Don't you get it, Emily? It's not just about the money anymore. She disrespected me. She made me look weak. In front of the cops, the neighbors, even you. If I let her get away with that, what do I have left? Emily's stomach churned. She had seen this side of him before. but never this dark, never this violent. She wanted to scream, to run, to claw her way free. But fear kept her frozen. Still, her mind whispered, if you don't stop him, he'll kill her. Her eyes flicked to the revolver resting on the nightstand. She inched her hand subtly, testing the knot in the cord. It was loose. Loose enough. David didn't notice. He was too busy scribbling something on a scrap of motel stationery, his handwriting jagged and uneven. Emily leaned slightly, trying to see the words. What she saw made her blood run cold. He was writing her mother's address. Back at the house, I tried to distract myself by making tea. The officer stationed outside checked in every half hour, reminding me that the street was being patrolled. But the house still felt like a cage. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside the window made my heart jump. I sat in the living room, staring at the family photos on the wall. Emily's smile beamed back at me from her graduation picture, her eyes bright with hope. I whispered to the photo, as though she could hear me. Come back to me, baby. Please. The sound of my phone vibrating on the table jolted me. It was a blocked number. My hand trembled as I picked it up. Hello. Silence. Then a familiar voice, low and venomous. You thought the cops could save you, didn't you? David. My throat went dry. Where is Emily? He chuckled darkly. She's right here. Safe for now. But you won't be safe much longer. My grip tightened on the phone. David, please. You don't have to do this. Take the money if that's what you want. Just don't hurt her. His laugh was sharp, cold. This isn't about the money anymore, Margaret. This is about payback. You humiliated me. You made me look like nothing. And I don't forgive that. The line went dead. I sat frozen, the phone slipping from my hand onto the floor. My chest heaved with panic, but also with something else, something that had been simmering beneath the fear. Rage. For too long, I had let David dictate everything. His threats, his fists, his manipulation. But this was my life, my family, my fight. If he was coming for me, then I needed to be ready. I walked slowly to the hallway closet, pulling out a dusty box. Inside was John's old army trunk. My late husband had kept it locked for years, but after he passed, I had opened it once, just once, to tuck away mementos. My hand shook as I lifted the lid now. Inside lay John's service knife, still sharp, still gleaming. My fingers traced the handle. I had never been a violent woman, but if David forced me to choose between surrender and survival, I knew what I had to do. Meanwhile, Emily sat on the motel bed, her wrists finally free from the cord. She kept them tucked behind her, pretending she was still bound. Her heart pounded as David stuffed papers into a duffel bag. Maps, cash, and the revolver. Get up, he barked. We're leaving. Where are we going? She asked, her voice weak. He smirked. To pay your mother a visit. Emily's blood turned to ice. She knew she had only seconds to act. As David turned his back to grab the duffel bag, she lunged for the revolver. Her fingers brushed the grip, but David spun around, his eyes narrowing. He caught her wrist in an iron grip and twisted until she cried out. You think you're smarter than me? He snarled, yanking the gun away. Try that again, and I'll put a bullet in you before I deal with her. Emily sobbed, clutching her wrist. She had failed, and now, she knew, he was more dangerous than ever. Back at the house, Detective Harris returned with grim news. Mrs. Turner, we've just learned David's truck was spotted heading back into Dayton. He's not running. He's coming for you. My heart raced, but I forced myself to stand tall. Then let him come. The detective frowned. We'll set up protection around the property. But you need to understand, this man is unstable. He won't stop until... A crash outside cut him off. The living room window shattered, glass spraying across the floor. A rock rolled to a stop at my feet. Wrapped around it was a note. With shaking hands, I unwrapped the paper. Scrawled in David's jagged handwriting were 5 words that made my blood run cold. Tonight, you pay in blood. The house had never felt so small. Police cars idled along the street, their headlights sweeping across the front lawn in steady arcs. 2 officers were stationed inside, one in the kitchen and the other near the back door, but even with them here, The walls seemed to close in around me. Detective Harris paced in front of the shattered window, glass crunching under his boots. He held the note David had thrown inside. His jaw was tight, his voice clipped. This man is escalating. He's taunting you, Mrs. Turner. That's not good. I sat in the armchair clutching John's old knife, hidden beneath a blanket on my lap. My hands trembled, though I tried to hide it. He said tonight. That means he's close, doesn't it? The younger officer glanced at the detective. Sir, should we move her to a safe house? Harris shook his head. Too risky. He could already be watching. Moving her now would make her a target in the open. No, he wants to come here, let him. We'll be ready. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe the flashing lights and heavy boots could keep me safe. But deep inside, I knew David. He wasn't like other men. He was patient, ruthless, and worst of all, he thought he was smarter than everyone else. That made him dangerous in ways even the police couldn't predict. Across town, Emily pressed her face against the cool motel window. The night outside was alive with crickets, the neon sign buzzing faintly. David was in the bathroom, the shower running. For the first time in hours, she was alone. Her wrists were raw from the cords, but her mind was sharp, focused. She knew this was her only chance. Her eyes darted to the revolver, now tucked into David's duffel bag on the floor. Slowly, quietly, she slipped to her knees. Her fingers trembled as she inched the zipper open. The cold steel of the gun pressed against her skin, and she nearly wept with relief. She pulled it free just as the water shut off. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She had seconds. Emily darted to the door, fumbling with the lock. The knob turned, but before she could pull it open, David's voice boomed from the bathroom. What the hell are you doing? She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. The bathroom door flew open, steam billowing out. David stepped into the room, a towel slung low around his waist. His eyes fell on the revolver in her hand, and a slow, dangerous smile spread across his face. Well, well, he said softly. Looks like you finally grew a spine. Emily's hands shook so badly the gun wavered. Stay back, David. I'll shoot. He took a step closer, unafraid. No, you won't. You don't have it in you. You're soft, weak, just like her. Her finger twitched on the trigger. But instead of firing, she stumbled backward, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to be strong, but fear chained her like it always had. David snatched the gun from her hands in one swift motion. He shoved her against the wall, pressing the barrel under her chin. You ever pull something like that again, and I won't waste a bullet on your mother. I'll put it right here in you. Emily sobbed, collapsing against him as he shoved the gun back into the bag. Get dressed, he snapped. We're leaving. It's showtime. Back at the house, I walked through the rooms, unable to sit still. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound amplified. The ticking clock on the mantelpiece felt like a countdown. Harris watched me carefully. Mrs. Turner, I know this is hard, but you need to trust us. David wants you afraid. Don't give him that satisfaction. I forced a nod, but inside I was unraveling. The knife hidden beneath my blanket felt like my only tether to courage. And then the lights went out. The hum of the refrigerator died. The lamps flickered once, then went dark. The entire street was swallowed in blackness. The officers cursed, their flashlights clicking on in jittery beams. Power outage, one muttered. No, Harris said grimly, his gun drawn. This is him. He cut the power. My breath caught in my throat. Somewhere in the darkness beyond the windows, David was waiting, watching, and he wasn't alone. A noise outside made us all turn, a car door slamming, followed by hurried footsteps crunching on gravel. Positions. Harris barked. The officers took cover, their beams sweeping across the yard. My heart hammered as I crouched low, gripping the knife under the blanket. Then, a voice rang out from the shadows. Margaret. It was Emily. I shot to my feet, hope flaring so bright it hurt. Emily, the officers shouted for me to stay back, but I couldn't. I stumbled toward the window, peering into the darkness. And then I saw her, my daughter, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. She was standing at the edge of the yard, her hands raised. Behind her, pressing the revolver against her back, was David. My world stopped. I pressed a hand to the glass, tears streaming down my face. Emily. David's grin glowed in the flashlight beams. Evening, folks. I brought your star witness. The officers raised their guns, shouting orders. Drop the weapon. Hands where we can see them. David laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. You fire a single shot, and she's dead before she hits the ground. Emily sobbed, her voice breaking. Mom. My chest ached so badly I thought my ribs would crack. My baby, my little girl, caught between me and the monster she married. Harris stepped forward carefully, his gun trained on David. It doesn't have to end this way. Let her go. We can talk. David's eyes locked on mine through the broken window. He wasn't listening to Harris. He wasn't listening to anyone. This was personal. This was between him and me. And in that moment, I knew one thing with chilling certainty. He wasn't here to bargain. He was here to end it. The night air was split by the deafening sound of a gunshot. The crack of the gunshot echoed across the street, sharp as thunder. For a split second, time froze. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. My heart screamed one word, Emily. But when my eyes found her in the dark yard, she was still standing. Shaken, trembling, but alive. It wasn't her blood. Not yet. David raised the smoking revolver high, waving it like a trophy. That was just a warning, he shouted. His grin gleamed in the police flashlights. Next time, it's your dear mother's heart or hers. Emily collapsed to her knees, sobbing. The barrel pressed against her temple again, and my own knees buckled. I clutched the window frame to keep from falling. Please, I whispered. Don't hurt her. She's all I have. David's laughter sliced through the night. All you have? No, Margaret. She's mine. You're just a stubborn old woman who doesn't know when to give up. Detective Harris raised his voice, calm but firm. David, listen to me. You're cornered. We have the street surrounded. There's nowhere to go. Let the girl go and we can work this out. But David wasn't listening. His eyes were on me, burning with the same fury that had knocked me to the floor weeks ago when his fist sent me sprawling. That night replayed in my mind. The hair yanked from my scalp, my daughter's voice shrieking, "Get out." It's our 4 million now. And now here we were again. Only this time, it wasn't just betrayal. It was life and death. Inside the house, the officers shifted nervously, fingers tight on their triggers. One wrong move, one twitch of David's finger, and Emily would be gone. Please, I whispered again, my voice breaking. Take me instead. David's grin widened. Oh, I'll get to you, Margaret. Don't worry. Tonight's going to be memorable. He yanked Emily to her feet, dragging her toward the porch. Every step closer made my pulse pound harder. She was almost at the door, almost inside my home, my supposed safe place, with a loaded gun pressed to her head. I thought the police would storm forward, that they'd rush him, but no one moved. They were frozen, waiting for the right command, the right moment. But what if that moment never came? Emily's eyes locked with mine through the broken glass. They were wide, terrified, pleading. Mom, she whispered. I couldn't hold back anymore. I lunged for the door, tearing it open. Margaret, no. Harris roared, but it was too late. I stumbled into the yard, hands raised, tears streaming down my face. David, please. I cried. Don't do this. The revolver swung toward me, the cold black hole of the barrel aimed square at my chest. Emily screamed, trying to pull away, but his arm tightened around her like a vice. You want to save her? David snarled, then beg. I dropped to my knees in the wet grass, sobbing openly now. Pride didn't matter. Dignity didn't matter. All that mattered was keeping my daughter alive. Please, David, I choked out. You win. You always win. Just don't take her from me. For a moment, just a sliver of a moment, I saw something flicker across his face. Not compassion, never that, but satisfaction. He wanted to see me broken. And I was. He pressed his lips close to Emily's ear. Hear that? Even your saintly mother admits it. I win. Emily whimpered, shaking in his grip. The police shouted again, their beams darting. But David ignored them all. His entire world was locked on me. And that's when I saw it. The knife, still tucked under the blanket I had dragged outside in my panic. half hidden in the folds, lying just within reach. A spark lit inside me. A memory of John's voice, steady and strong. Never back down when the ones you love are in danger, Margaret. Never. My fingers twitched toward it, but before I could move, David shoved Emily hard toward the porch. She stumbled forward, crashing into the steps. The revolver swung back to me. You think you're clever, don't you? His voice was low, dangerous. But I see that look in your eyes. You're planning something. I froze, the knife still inches away. The smile drained from his face. His finger tightened on the trigger. And then, a loud crack split the night. This time, it wasn't David's gun. The back window of a police cruiser shattered, glass raining onto the pavement. Everyone spun toward the sound. A second later, headlights blazed to life at the far end of the street. An engine roared. A car came speeding straight toward us. David cursed, yanking Emily back against him as the officers shouted in confusion. Harris screamed into his radio, but the car didn't slow. It barreled forward, tires screeching, aiming for the yard, aiming for us. And in that split second, I realized the truth. David wasn't working alone. The car roared down the street like a beast unleashed, its headlights blinding, its engine growling louder than the pounding of my own heart. For a split second, every officer froze, their guns forgotten. The tires screamed against the pavement, leaving black scars as it hurtled straight for David, Emily, and me. Get down, Harris bellowed, but David didn't move. He just tightened his grip on Emily, dragging her against his chest, his revolver pressed hard to her ribs. The car didn't slow. David, I screamed, throwing myself sideways into the grass just as the car jumped the curb. The world blurred, metal crashing, glass exploding, screams tearing through the night. The front of the vehicle smashed into the wooden porch, splintering it to pieces. Emily shrieked as David yanked her back, both of them tumbling to the ground. The revolver flew from his hand, skittering across the lawn. Everything was chaos. Officers diving for cover, neighbors screaming. My heart racing so hard it felt like it might burst. I looked up through the smoke and dust. The car had come to a dead stop against the porch. The hood was crumpled like paper, steam hissing from under it. And then the driver's door swung open. Out stepped a woman, tall, blonde, dressed in black. She moved with a strange calm, like she had rehearsed this moment 100 times. In her hand, a pistol gleamed beneath the streetlight. About time, David growled, scrambling to his feet. The sight of her froze my blood. She wasn't just anyone, she was familiar. Not from my past, not someone I knew personally, but from the whispers I'd heard around town. People said David had a business partner, someone dangerous, someone you didn't cross. And now she was standing in my yard. The officers shouted, weapons trained. Drop the gun. Drop it now. But the woman didn't even flinch. She raised her pistol, slow and deliberate, and aimed it, not at them, at me. Emily screamed, no, and tried to pull away from David, but his grip clamped down again, this time with his bare hands. Not a step closer. David roared at the police, yanking Emily up by her arm. Or she dies first. Harris's face went pale. The whole street went still. The woman's eyes locked on mine, cold and empty. David, she said softly, almost too calm for the madness around us. We don't have time for games. Finish it. My stomach turned to ice. She wasn't bluffing. I forced myself to look away from her, my gaze darting across the grass. The revolver David had dropped glinted faintly in the yard light, maybe 10 feet away. Too far to grab without being noticed. But the knife was still right beside me in the folds of the blanket. I pressed my hand against it, hidden from view, my pulse racing. David, the woman said again, sharper this time, the money won't matter if we're caught. Do it now. The officers shifted uneasily. Harris's voice boomed out, steady but firm. Nobody has to get hurt. Drop your weapons. This can end peacefully. Peacefully. David barked out a laugh that chilled me to my core. You think after everything, after what she's done, after what we've planned, we'll walk away peacefully. He shoved Emily to her knees, his hand twisted cruelly in her hair. She whimpered, tears streaking her face. And then I saw it, his other hand reaching toward his boot. He had another weapon. A knife. The world seemed to tilt. My daughter was on her knees. The gunwoman's pistol was aimed at my chest, and David's fingers were closing around a blade that gleamed in the light. It felt like my soul left my body. David, stop. I cried, my voice breaking. She's your wife. She's the mother of your child. His head snapped toward me, eyes blazing. She was useful. That's all. Emily let out a strangled sob, her body trembling. That was the moment something inside me broke. The years of holding my tongue, the months of watching this monster strip my daughter away from me, the night he knocked me to the floor and laughed as Emily screamed at me to get out, all of it boiled to the surface. I tightened my grip on the hidden knife, and then, without thinking, I lunged. I rolled across the grass, slashing upward with every ounce of strength in my body. The blade caught David's arm just as he raised the knife over Emily. He howled in rage, stumbling back. Blood sprayed across the porch ruins. Shoot her, he roared at the blonde woman. Now, but before she could, a crack of gunfire ripped through the night. Not hers, the police. She spun, firing back, bullets whizzing past like angry hornets. The night exploded into chaos. Officers shouting, neighbors screaming, glass shattering, sirens wailing louder. Emily crawled toward me, sobbing, her hands outstretched. Mom! I grabbed her, pulling her into my arms, shielding her with my body as bullets tore the air. The last thing I saw before ducking behind the ruined porch was David, blood dripping from his arm, grinning through the madness. And then, through the storm of flashing lights and gunfire, his voice cut through like a knife. You'll regret this, Margaret. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. Gunfire split the night open like thunder, each crack rattling my bones. The street that once held quiet houses and neatly trimmed lawns now looked like a war zone. Blue and red lights flashed wildly across faces twisted in fear, across the ruined porch, across David's blood-stained shirt. I clutched Emily to my chest, feeling her sobs tremble through me, but I couldn't close my eyes. Not now. Not when he was still out there. The blonde woman moved like a shadow, ducking behind the crumpled car, her pistol spitting fire at the officers. The cops responded in kind, bullets shattering wood, spraying sparks from metal, sending shards of glass raining down from the street lamps. David crouched low, clutching his bleeding arm, but his grin never faltered. He was enjoying this, enjoying the chaos, the fear, the way he held all of us in the palm of his hand. Harris's voice boomed through a megaphone. Put down your weapons. Drop them now. But David only laughed, spittle flying from his lips. You think you've won? You have no idea what's coming. Then he grabbed something from his belt. A smoke grenade. No. I screamed. Too late. He yanked the pin with his teeth and hurled it across the yard. It clattered against the ground, then hissed. Thick gray smoke poured upward, swallowing the flashing lights, the shouts, the world itself. Suddenly, I couldn't see more than a foot in front of me. Coughing, choking, I pulled Emily close and dropped to the ground, pressing the blanket over our faces. In the blur, I heard boots pounding, officers shouting, more shots cracking through the fog. And then, David's voice low right behind me. Gotcha. Before I could move, his hand fisted in my hair, jerking me backwards so hard I cried out. Emily screamed, clawing at him, but he shoved her down with his boot. Stay there, he barked. The blonde woman appeared through the smoke, grabbing his uninjured arm. We have to move now. They dragged me like a rag doll toward the car wreck, the smoke covering their escape. My nails scraped the dirt, my lungs burning, my throat raw from coughing. Let her go. Emily's voice cracked through the haze. I caught one last glimpse of her through the smoke, on her knees, reaching for me, her face twisted in terror. And then she was gone. The next thing I knew, I was being shoved into the back seat of the wrecked car. Glass cut into my palms as I tried to push away, but David's bloody arm shoved me down. The blonde woman jumped behind the wheel, slamming her fist against the ignition. The car groaned in protest, its hood already crumpled from the crash, but somehow, God help me, it roared back to life. Drive. David snapped. The tires spun, dirt spraying. The car lurched backward off the ruined porch, dragging me deeper into the smoke, deeper into the nightmare. The world outside was sirens and gunfire and screams, but inside that car it was only their laughter. David leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. You thought you could take my family from me, Margaret? No, I take yours. The blonde woman smirked in the mirror. She's leverage. The daughter's too soft to survive without her. I stared at her reflection, my chest heaving. Who are you? I rasped. Her eyes met mine, cold and empty. The one who finishes what he can't. The car tore down the street, tires screeching, smoke still pouring behind us. Through the shattered back window, I caught glimpses of flashing lights chasing us, but fading as we turned corner after corner. David pressed his bleeding arm with one hand and his knife with the other, his grin stretching wider and wider. This is only the beginning. The words sank into me like poison. Hours earlier, I would never have believed it would come to this. Me, a 65-year-old grandmother, trapped between two criminals, kidnapped from my own home, torn away from my daughter in the middle of gunfire. But here I was, and deep down, beneath the terror, one thought burned hotter than all the rest. If I survived this, I would make them pay. I would not die on David's terms. The car slowed after miles of weaving through dark back roads, eventually pulling into a secluded clearing deep in the woods of northern Georgia. The trees loomed like giants, their branches clawing at the night sky. The engine sputtered and died. Silence pressed in. The blonde woman stepped out, scanning the woods like she knew this place well. David yanked me out by the arm, ignoring the blood soaking through his sleeve. He shoved me against a tree. Sit. Don't move. My knees buckled, but I forced myself upright, glaring at him through the shadows. You'll never get away with this. He crouched low, his face inches from mine, his teeth bared in a bloody grin. I already have. The blonde woman reappeared, pulling a canvas bag from the trunk. She tossed it at his feet. Inside, I glimpsed stacks of cash, guns, and something metallic, handcuffs. My stomach sank. This wasn't a desperate escape. This was a plan. Something they'd been preparing for long before tonight. The blonde woman's voice was like ice. We move at dawn. By then, the cops will have no trail. David nodded, but his eyes never left me. And what about her? She studied me for a long moment, then shrugged. She's yours. Do what you want. Just make sure she's quiet. The words cut deeper than any knife. David's grin widened. He crouched lower, whispering so close I could feel his breath. You hear that, Margaret? You're mine now. And in that moment, I knew. Escaping wasn't just about saving myself. It was about saving Emily. About saving whatever piece of my family was still left from the wreckage of his madness. Because if I didn't, he would destroy her too. And I couldn't let that happen. But then, before the night ended, something else happened. Something that changed everything. As the blonde woman prepared the campfire, David walked away to wash his bleeding arm at the creek. For the first time since the chaos began, I was left alone with her. I studied her through the shadows, my heart hammering. She wasn't watching me, not closely. She was busy arranging the money, checking her weapons. And then, out of nowhere, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and for a fleeting second, I saw the screen light up. A name. A picture. Emily. My blood turned to ice. The blonde woman wasn't just his partner. She was connected to my daughter. I froze, torn between rage and horror. The puzzle pieces clicked together in my mind, each one more painful than the last. And then it hit me. This wasn't just David's betrayal. Emily knew her. Emily was part of this. The fire crackled, the woods whispered, and my entire world shattered for the second time that night. The fire's glow flickered across her face, painting the blonde woman in shifting shades of orange and black. She looked calm, collected, in control. She wasn't a stranger caught up in David's madness. She was part of something far bigger. But all I could see was the phone. That glowing screen. That picture of Emily smiling, her number flashing bold beneath it. Emily. My Emily. Why was her name on this woman's phone? I felt the blood drain from my body as my mind spun back to 100 small moments. Times I had noticed Emily stepping out for phone calls she didn't want me to hear, the way she had hidden her screen when I walked into a room, the strange packages delivered when David was working late. I had told myself she was just embarrassed, that she was trying to hold a little privacy, that all daughters kept secrets from their mothers. But now it looked like those secrets weren't just private. They were poisonous. David returned from the creek, his shirt dark with fresh stains, but his eyes gleamed with a sick light. He tossed his knife on a log and leaned close to the fire, his smile crooked. Everything's in place. By sunrise, they'll never find us. The blonde woman didn't even look at him. She was still scrolling, her thumb moving across the phone, her jaw tight. And then she whispered, almost to herself, "She's calling again." My heart froze. She? David asked, glancing at her. "Emily," the blonde woman muttered, irritation flashing in her eyes. "She won't stop. She says she's panicking, afraid her mother will talk." Her head lifted, her gaze piercing me. David chuckled, the sound low and cruel. "Well, Mommy dearest is right here. Maybe we should let her listen." He yanked the phone from the blonde's hand before she could argue. His bloody fingers smeared the glass as he swiped, then hit speaker. And there it was, her voice. My daughter's voice. "Did you take care of her? Tell me you did, please. She can't ruin this for us. Not after everything we planned. David promised me we're set, right? The money, the house, all of it." My lungs seized. My chest felt like it was caving in. It was her. Her voice, trembling, desperate. Talking about money. Talking about promises. Talking about me as though I were a problem to erase. I had carried that girl in my arms, kissed her scraped knees, worked 2 jobs to make sure she could go to college, skipped meals so she could eat. And now she was on the phone with the people who had dragged me into the woods like prey. David grinned at me, his teeth gleaming in the firelight. "You hear that, Margaret? Your perfect little angel isn't so perfect after all." I shook my head, my throat raw. "No, she's scared. You manipulated her. You forced her into this." But deep down, a seed of doubt sprouted, choking me. Because part of me knew Emily's voice hadn't sounded forced. It had sounded willing. The blonde woman snatched the phone back, ending the call with a sharp tap. She glared at David. "Don't toy with her yet. We need leverage." David chuckled, then crouched low in front of me, his eyes glittering. "Leverage is all she is. And soon, she'll watch her daughter lose everything, just like she lost me." The fire popped, sending sparks spiraling upward. The woods pressed in closer, darker, as though even the trees were listening. I sat frozen, my pulse slamming in my ears, the betrayal of Emily's voice echoing through me. My daughter, my flesh and blood. She had chosen him. She had chosen money. She had chosen betrayal. The hours crawled. They kept me tied to the tree with rope that bit into my wrists, my legs aching, my body trembling from shock and rage. The blonde woman paced, checking her phone every few minutes, her jaw clenched. David dozed by the fire, his head lolling, his bloody arms stiff. But I didn't close my eyes. I couldn't. Every time I blinked, I saw Emily's face, heard her voice, felt the weight of her hands pulling my hair back as she screamed at me to get out. For $1,000,000. That was all it had taken to turn her against me. Not love, not loyalty, not family, money. I thought of the neighbors who had watched in silence, the cops who had arrived too late, the smoke, the chaos. And for the first time in my life, I felt something new growing inside me. Hotter than grief, stronger than despair. Hatred. I had always believed kindness could heal anything. That forgiveness made us whole. But tonight, tied to a tree in the woods of Georgia, I learned something else. Some betrayals were too deep for forgiveness, and some wounds could only be answered with fire. It was close to dawn when the next extreme moment came. The blonde woman's phone buzzed again. She stepped away from the fire to answer it, her voice low. David stirred, rubbing his eyes, muttering under his breath. And then, suddenly, headlights cut through the trees. My breath caught. A black SUV rolled into the clearing, its engine purring, its windows tinted. David scrambled to his feet, a grin splitting his face. Finally, The blonde woman pocketed her phone, her smile tight. They're here. The SUV stopped just a few feet away, its lights shutting off. The night fell back into silence, thick and heavy. And then the door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark suit. His presence made the air itself feel heavier. I couldn't see his face clearly in the dim light, but I didn't need to. Every part of me screamed that this man was worse than David, worse than the blonde woman, because David bowed his head when he approached. Sir, David said, his voice low, almost reverent. The man didn't answer. He just looked at me. And in that gaze, I knew my nightmare had only just begun. The man in the suit stood still for a long moment, his figure casting a tall shadow across the firelight. David shifted nervously at his side, his grin faltering, as though even he feared this man's authority. The blonde woman's eyes flicked between the two, her lips tight, her hands shoved into the pockets of her coat. And me, I couldn't breathe. The rope still cut into my wrists, but I barely felt it anymore. All I could feel was the weight of the stranger's stare. It was colder than the night air, sharper than any knife. Finally, he spoke. You've made a mess. His voice was low, steady, dangerous. David laughed nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. We had some complications, sir. He pointed at me, showed up where she wasn't supposed to. Emily didn't warn us she'd come early. My daughter's name slipped from his mouth like poison, twisting deeper into my chest. The man's eyes narrowed. Emily warned you plenty. You were careless. David swallowed hard, his bravado crumbling. The blonde woman stepped in quickly, her tone sharp. We kept her quiet. No one followed us. By sunrise, she won't be a problem. The man turned his gaze on me again. He stepped closer, his polished shoes crunching on the dirt. Up close, I could see his face, a square jaw, dark eyes, a scar across his chin. He looked like someone who had lived 1,000 lives, none of them clean. He crouched down until he was level with me. Margaret, he said softly, as though he'd known me for years. Hearing my name on his lips made my skin crawl. You've raised quite the daughter, he continued, his eyes never blinking. Smart, ruthless, willing to do what it takes to win. Not many have that in them. My throat burned. She's not like you. You twisted her, manipulated her. His smile was small, humorless. No, she chose us. She chose this. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. She's my daughter. She loved me once. He leaned closer, so close I could feel his breath. Love doesn't survive greed. You of all people should know that now. He stood and turned to David. Clean this up, tonight, and make sure Emily understands the cost of hesitation. David straightened like a soldier, nodding. Yes, sir. The man didn't look at me again. He simply walked back to the SUV, slid into the back seat, and shut the door. A moment later, the engine purred, and the vehicle rolled back into the woods, swallowed by the darkness. Silence followed. Heavy, suffocating silence. The blonde woman let out a shaky breath. David rubbed his face, muttering curses under his breath. And me. I sat there, shaking, the man's words echoing inside my skull. She chose this. She chose them. She chose money over me. The hours that followed felt like years. My body ached from being tied, my throat raw from holding back sobs. The fire burned low, its warmth fading, replaced by the biting chill of dawn creeping through the trees. David was restless, pacing back and forth, his movements jerky. The blonde woman, in contrast, was eerily calm, sitting on a log, sharpening a blade with slow, precise strokes. I stared at them, my mind racing. If Emily had chosen this path, then I had no one left. No one to save me, no one to fight for me. But that didn't mean I was powerless. I thought back to my younger years, the lessons my grandmother had drilled into me. You can't control how others betray you, but you can control how you rise. And sitting there, wrists burning, body trembling, I made a silent promise. I would rise. Even if it killed me, I would not let them win. The first sliver of dawn broke through the trees when the next extreme event came crashing down. A sharp sound cut through the air. Crack. At first, I thought it was a branch snapping under the weight of the cold. But then came another, and another, louder, sharper. Gunshots. David froze mid-step, his head snapping toward the trees. The blonde woman dropped her blade, her hand flying to her waistband where another knife gleamed. My heart slammed against my ribs. The gunfire drew closer, echoing through the woods, and then voices. Shouting. Boots pounding the earth. David's eyes widened. No, 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 it's too soon. The blonde woman snarled. We've been found. Before I could process, a figure burst through the tree line, a man in tactical gear, a rifle raised. Behind him, more shadows moved, armed and fast. The blonde woman lunged, knocking the fire pit over, sending sparks into the air. Chaos erupted, David cursing, gunfire cracking, the forest exploding with noise. And me. I ducked my head as low as I could, praying the ropes would hold, praying stray bullets wouldn't end me before I got the chance to fight back. One of the men shouted into a radio, his voice sharp, target secured. Repeat, target secured. Another extreme twist. Who were they after? Me. David? Emily? The world spun as dirt kicked up. Shots rang out, and for the first time in this nightmare, I wondered, was rescue finally here? Or had I just been delivered into an even deadlier trap? The world turned into thunder. Gunshots ripped through the trees, echoing so loud, they felt like they were inside my skull. Men in tactical gear rushed from the darkness, their boots pounding, their weapons raised. Shouts cut through the smoke and sparks from the overturned fire pit. David cursed, fumbling at his waistband for a pistol. The blonde woman didn't hesitate. She hurled her knife at the first man who appeared, striking him in the vest with a sickening thud. He staggered, but another took his place instantly, moving with a precision that screamed military. I curled into myself, the rope still cutting into my wrists. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat screaming, "This is it. This is the end." One of the soldiers shouted, "Target secured." But who was the target? Me or them? The blonde woman dove behind a log, firing shots now, her pistol barking. David scrambled beside her, panic in every motion. The men in tactical gear didn't falter. They advanced, spreading in formation. This wasn't chaos for them. It was choreography. I pressed my cheek to the cold earth, praying no stray bullet would find me. Smoke and dirt stung my eyes. My chest ached from holding in screams. And then hands. Strong hands grabbed my shoulders, rolling me onto my back. I gasped, blinking up into a black helmet, a faceless mask with a tinted visor. The man knelt over me, his voice sharp but steady. "Are you Margaret?" I couldn't even speak. I just nodded, my breath coming in ragged bursts. He spoke into his radio. "We have her. Repeat, we have her." Hope flared, but it flickered just as quickly. Because across the clearing, I saw the blonde woman's eyes land on me. Her face twisted with fury. "She's the prize," she screamed, her voice hoarse. "Don't let them take her." My stomach dropped. The prize. I wasn't being rescued. I was being fought over. The next minutes blurred into madness. The blonde woman and David launched a desperate counterattack, their bullets snapping through the trees. The men in black returned fire, precise and deadly. The night lit up with muzzle flashes, the air thick with the stench of gunpowder. The soldier over me cut my ropes in one swift motion. Pain shot through my arms as blood rushed back to my hands. "Move," he barked, yanking me to my feet. I stumbled, nearly collapsing, but his grip kept me upright. My legs felt like lead, but terror drove them forward. He half-dragged me toward the tree line. Behind us, David screamed, a raw, furious sound. "Emily will kill you all for this." Her name sliced through me like glass. Emily, my daughter, my blood. She was behind this. She was orchestrating it. And now men with guns were killing each other in her name. My breath caught in my throat as the soldier pulled me deeper into the forest. Branches whipped against my face, mud sucked at my shoes. Shouts followed us, then more gunfire, closer this time. Another soldier appeared ahead, signaling frantically. "This way. Vehicles ready." They were taking me somewhere, but where? For rescue or for ransom? We broke into a small clearing, where a black van sat with its engine running. Its rear doors were open, the interior lit by harsh white light. Inside, one soldier shouted. I froze at the threshold. Something in my gut screamed, don't. The van looked too much like the SUV that had brought David's boss earlier. Cold. Controlled. A trap disguised as salvation. I staggered back, shaking my head. No, I don't trust you. The soldier holding me tightened his grip. You don't have a choice. He shoved me forward. My knees hit the van's metal floor. Rough hands pulled me fully inside. The door slammed shut. And just like that, the chaos of the forest was silenced, replaced by the roar of the engine. I looked up at the men surrounding me. Helmets, masks, no faces, no names. One of them leaned close, pulling off his helmet at last. His hair was short, streaked with gray, his jaw tight with tension. Margaret, he said firmly, you're safe now. Safe. The word felt hollow. I studied his eyes, searching for honesty. But I'd been fooled before by Emily's sweet smiles, by David's false charm, by the promises of family. And I couldn't shake the echo of the blonde woman's scream. She's the prize. The van jolted forward, bouncing along the dirt road. My stomach churned. I clutched my sore wrists, my mind spinning. Why was I so important? Why did Emily and these men want me so badly? It wasn't just about the money anymore. This was something bigger, something darker. The gray-haired man sat across from me, his eyes locked on mine. You'll understand everything soon. Just hold on. I wanted to scream at him, demand answers, claw my way out of the van. But exhaustion drowned my rage. My body sagged against the cold metal wall. Images of Emily flooded my mind, her smile as a child, her laughter echoing through our small kitchen, her tiny hands clutching mine. And then the last memory before everything shattered. Her eyes filled with hatred as she pulled my hair and screamed, "Get out." It's our 4 million now. Tears burned my eyes, but I swallowed them down. If Emily had truly chosen this path, if she had truly handed me over to these monsters, then she was no daughter of mine. And if I ever found my way out of this alive, I would make her regret every single betrayal. The van hit pavement. The ride smoothed, faster now. City lights flickered through the cracks in the doors. I pressed my ear against the cold metal, trying to listen. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police? Ambulances? Or maybe just another illusion. The gray-haired man leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. We're almost there. Stay quiet and you'll live. Almost there. But where was there? The van slowed, turned, stopped. The doors swung open, revealing a warehouse, its massive frame looming against the early morning sky. Men moved inside, loading crates, speaking into radios. My stomach twisted into knots. This wasn't a rescue. This was a handoff. And whatever waited inside that warehouse would be worse than the woods, worse than David, worse than anything I'd faced so far. Because deep down I knew Emily was waiting for me. The warehouse swallowed me whole. The air inside was thick with oil, sweat, and the metallic tang of rust. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. Men in black uniforms moved with purpose, hauling crates, checking weapons, speaking into radios. I stumbled as the gray-haired man guided me forward. My knees screamed, my wrists raw from the ropes that had only just been cut. Every step felt heavier than the last. And then I saw her, Emily. My daughter stood at the far end of the warehouse, her arms crossed, her chin tilted in that familiar, arrogant way she had even as a child when she thought she was smarter than everyone else. But this wasn't the daughter I raised in a small Ohio town. This wasn't the girl who used to climb into my lap to read picture books. This was a stranger wearing her face. She wore a fitted black coat, her blonde hair tied back in a severe knot. Her lips painted a deep red that made her look older, colder. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, locked onto me like I was prey. "Well," she said, her voice echoing through the cavernous space. "You brought her." The gray-haired man gave a curt nod. "Safe and alive, as promised." Her lips curled into a smirk. Safe is relative. I froze. My chest rose and fell, my breath shallow. "Emily," I whispered. The word felt foreign now. "What is this? What have you done?" She walked toward me, her heels clicking against the concrete floor. Every sound was a nail in my coffin. What I've done, she said softly, is what you could never do, Mother. I took control. I blinked at her, the sting of tears burning behind my eyes. Control? You destroyed everything. Our family. Your father's legacy. You had David beat me, my voice cracked. And now this? These men? The circus. Her smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. Oh, Mother, you still think small. This isn't about Dad's money anymore. It's bigger. Much bigger. The gray-haired man stepped back, almost deferential. Something about that unsettled me more than anything else. These men didn't look like hired thugs. They respected her, obeyed her, and that realization chilled me to the bone. Emily circled me slowly, her eyes scanning me up and down. Do you know why you're still alive, Mother? I swallowed hard, my throat dry as paper. Because somewhere in you still care. Her laugh was sharp, brittle. Wrong. You're alive because you're useful. And as long as you're useful, you'll stay breathing. The words hit harder than David's fist ever had. My own daughter, the child I carried, fed, clothed, and protected, looked at me as nothing more than a tool. Tears blurred my vision, but I blinked them away. I would not let her see me break. A sudden crash echoed through the warehouse as one of the crates toppled, spilling its contents, stacks of sleek black rifles. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just about inheritance. This was something darker. Something criminal. Emily glanced at the mess, then back at me, her expression unchanging. You always told me kindness mattered, she said coldly. That empathy made us strong. Do you know what empathy really did for you, Mother? Her eyes burned into mine. It made you weak. My jaw tightened. No, Emily. Empathy makes us human. It's the only thing that separates us from monsters. Her lips curled. Then I guess I'd rather be a monster. The gray-haired man spoke up, his tone clipped. Time is short. We need to move the product before sunrise. Emily nodded, then leaned close to me, her voice dropping to a whisper only I could hear. You'll be coming with us, Mother. A symbol. Proof that no one escapes us. You'll make a fine reminder to anyone who dares get in the way. I recoiled, my stomach twisting. You're using me like a hostage. Her smile was ice. Not just a hostage. A message. I shook my head, my voice breaking. Emily, how did you become this? She tilted her head, almost mockingly. Maybe I always was. The words carved through me like glass. Suddenly, shouting erupted near the entrance. Men rushed in, their radios crackling with urgency. Police scanners lit up. Units are moving in this direction. Emily's eyes snapped to the gray-haired man. How much time? Minutes at most. My heart leapt. Police. Rescue. Hope. But Emily's lips curved into a predator's smile. Then let's make them regret coming. She snapped her fingers and men began grabbing weapons, loading magazines, preparing for battle. The warehouse transformed into a fortress in seconds. I stood frozen, my pulse racing. If the police stormed this place, it would be a bloodbath. And I was standing in the middle of it. Emily turned back to me, her eyes gleaming. Stay close, Mother. You're about to see what real power looks like. The world tilted beneath me. My daughter, the baby I once rocked to sleep, was ready to unleash war. And I knew then, with a clarity sharper than pain itself, if I didn't find a way to stop her, she wouldn't just ruin my life. She'd destroy everything in her path. The sound of sirens grew louder, closer. Emily lifted a rifle from one of the crates, her hand steady, her posture confident. She looked like she had done this 1,000 times before. And then she turned to me, offering a smile that chilled me to my marrow. Welcome to the new world, Mother. The warehouse doors shuddered as lights flashed outside. And then, the first gunshot cracked through the night. The first gunshot echoed like thunder, rattling the metal walls of the warehouse. Screams broke out as men scrambled, loading magazines, slamming crates shut, dragging them toward trucks waiting in the shadows. Red and blue lights spilled in through the high windows, flashing across steel beams and concrete. I froze, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Emily didn't flinch. She stood tall in the middle of the chaos, her rifle raised, her jaw clenched with determination. Positions, she barked, her voice sharp and commanding. "No one gets through those doors." The men obeyed instantly, scattering to cover points, crouching behind crates, weapons trained at the looming entrance. I stumbled back, pressing my spine against a pillar, trying to make myself invisible. Every nerve in my body screamed for me to run, but there was nowhere to go. The warehouse shook again, this time from a battering ram slamming against the doors. Boom, boom, boom. Metal groaned, bolts straining under the pressure. Emily turned, her eyes locking on mine. For a moment, the noise faded, and all I could see was my daughter. My little girl. "Stay behind me, mother," she said, her tone clipped, almost protective. "If anyone wants you, they'll have to go through me." Her words cut me in half. Was that love buried deep inside her voice, or just another layer of control? I couldn't tell anymore. The doors burst open. Police stormed in, shields raised, guns drawn, voices booming. "Police, drop your weapons." Gunfire exploded instantly. The warehouse turned into a war zone. Bullets ricocheted off steel, sparks flying as men shouted, ducked, returned fire. The air filled with smoke and the acrid stench of gunpowder. I dropped to the floor, covering my head, crawling toward the corner. My ears rang, every shot like a hammer to the skull. Through the chaos, I saw Emily, my daughter, standing tall, firing with precision, shouting orders. And I realized with dawning horror, she wasn't just part of this group. She was leading them. "Emily," I screamed, my voice raw. "Stop this, please." Her head whipped toward me, eyes blazing. "Stay down, mother," she snapped, pulling me closer to her side. "They'll kill you if they see you moving." "No," I cried, grabbing her arm. "You're going to get yourself killed. Stop this madness." She shook me off, her expression carved from stone. "This is who I am now. You'll never understand." Her words were drowned out by another deafening blast as a flashbang detonated near the entrance. The world went white, sound collapsing into a high-pitched ring. I clutched my ears, disoriented, my vision swimming. Shapes moved like shadows through the haze, police advancing, men falling. And in the middle of it all was Emily, refusing to yield. The gray-haired man grabbed her shoulder. "We're losing ground. We need to pull out." Emily's jaw tightened. "No, not yet." He snarled. "It's over. We can't hold them off." And then I saw it, the crack in her armor. Her eyes flickered, just for a moment. Fear, doubt, humanity. I seized it. "Emily," I shouted, forcing my way to her side. I grabbed her wrist, gripping it with everything I had. "Listen to me. You don't have to do this. You can stop right now." She yanked free, her eyes wild. "If I stop, I lose everything." I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. "No, you already lost everything. You lost me. You lost yourself. But it's not too late to take it back." Her lips trembled. Her hands shook on the rifle. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw my daughter, the real Emily, fighting inside her. Then a bullet struck the pillar inches from her head, spraying concrete dust across her face. She blinked, snapped back into the storm, and raised her rifle again. The moment was gone, and my heart shattered. Police pushed further inside. The gray-haired man shouted, "Fall back. Move the trucks." Emily snarled but finally relented, motioning for her men to retreat toward the back exit. But before she moved, she turned to me, her eyes burning with something fierce, desperate. "Come with me, mother," she said. Her voice cracked. "Please." Time slowed. Bullets whizzed by. Sirens wailed outside. My pulse thundered in my ears. And in that moment, I had a choice. Follow her into darkness, or stay and let the light swallow her whole. I met her gaze, my heart breaking into pieces. "I can't, Emily," I whispered. "Not like this." Her face twisted in anguish. For a second, she looked like a little girl again. Lost, scared, pleading. But then the mask returned. Cold, hard, unyielding. "Then you're my enemy too." She turned and ran toward the back exit, the gray-haired man covering her retreat. "Suspect fleeing," police shouted, advancing through the smoke. I scrambled to my feet, my legs trembling, shouting as loud as I could. She's escaping. That way. The back. Officers surged forward, their boots pounding the concrete. The warehouse roared with one last volley of gunfire, then silence. I pressed against the wall, my chest heaving, tears streaking down my face. And then shouts outside. The screech of tires. More gunfire. A crash. I stumbled forward, peering through the open bay doors. One of the trucks had slammed into a barricade, smoke pouring from its hood. Men were dragged out in cuffs, shouting curses. And there, on the ground, surrounded by flashing lights and shouting officers, was Emily. Her wrists bound behind her, her face pressed to the asphalt. Her eyes found mine through the chaos. For the first time, she didn't look powerful. She didn't look untouchable. She looked broken. And the worst part? I didn't feel victory. I felt grief. Hours later, I sat in the back of an ambulance, a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. My body ached, bruises blooming across my arms, my head pounding. A young officer approached, his expression gentle. "Ma'am, you're safe now. They'll be behind bars for a long time." I nodded numbly, staring at the ground. "Thank you." But my heart was heavy, because safety had come at a cost. My daughter was gone, not in the legal sense, not just in the prison bars that would soon surround her. She was gone because of the choices she had made, choices that had turned her into a stranger I could no longer reach. As the ambulance doors closed, I whispered to myself, to the night, to the stars above Ohio. Empathy isn't weakness, it's strength, and I'll never stop believing that, even if she does. Tears slipped down my cheeks, but I let them fall, because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of my healing. And maybe, just maybe, someday, Emily would find her way back too. But until then, I had survived, and survival was its own kind of victory.